The election of 1800, otherwise known as the Revolution of 1800, is one of the most controversial elections of its time. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Aaron Burr, John Jay, and Charles Pinckney were all running to achieve the same office, the President of the United States of America. Americans were tested during the election because of all the controversy it brought upon this great nation. Would the federal government allow itself to become tyrannical, overpower within itself? Would the American people agree with the outcome? This was a true test of strength among the states and the powers vested in the Constitution.
The Republican Party drew its followers from planters, small farmers, and artisans. These people wanted government to leave them alone as much as possible. They wanted to limit the federal government's power and leave the most of the power in the hands of the state and local governments. The people are without virtue. One Federalist said a long time ago. The Federalists looked up to the Whig political theory as an influence to how they should run their government. Hamilton, being a very big believer in the Federalist ideas, and other leaders who wanted a strong central government banded together to put over their policies. In 1787, they began calling themselves the Federalists. This was the first United States political party. Northern businessmen, bankers, and merchants supported the Federalists. They believed in a strong national or federal government. Federalists held that capital and industry were the basis of a healthy republic and that the federal government should act to protect the country's infant industries because they were still a growing nation and were very poor and in debt.
Adams' prior presidency of 1796 to 1800s, he entered office in a very difficult time because the French Revolution was in motion and they leaned on us for support. But Adams wanted nothing to do with it. This was very unpopular in the eyes of his party. The scandals and negative acts of his presidency portrayed him as a negative candidate towards his next election. He was not a fan favorite due to the XYZ affairs in July of 1797, which resulted in the Quasi-War. And new laws like the Alien and Sedition Acts created a widespread opinion of Adams' presidency as being tyrannical. His own party had come to distrust him, and the Democratic Republicans always criticized him.
So much was going on, and so many secrets were revealed or had taken place, no one knew who they could trust. In 1800, caucuses were held in New York by the parties to decide who they would endorse for President of the United States. The Republican Party did not expect that Burr would be on the ticket with Jefferson, and Adams was no unanimous vote for the Federalists, so they endorsed both Adams and Pinckney. Behind the scenes, though, Hamilton was purposely trying to sabotage Adams in the caucus. He had a secret hate for him that caused him to point scandals of the president and try to taint his image. He wanted no relation to the president. Hamilton had a huge influence over who would be president and even an influence on the parties. He was a very deceptive man. Power made him become corrupt. Adams was not the only candidate with a scandal or two. Jefferson had his fair share of scandals. The Federalists believed that because of Jefferson's sympathy towards the French Revolution, it would bring France's revolution to America. The results of the first election are as follows. Adams in third with 65 votes and Burr and Jefferson tied at 73 votes from the Electoral College. Because of the three-fifths clause, three-fifths of slaves were counted as a person, which gave Jefferson an advantage over Adams. Despite the Republican Party's victory, they would not convene the House until December of 1801. The deadlock became an issue to the Republican Party because it meant that Jefferson's presidency might be thwarted by an unyielding block of votes in the Federalist-dominated House. And although the Federalists may have lost the presidency and control in Congress, it seemed to maintain a lot of power still in the states. The idea for a while was just to elect Adams as president again, but coming to their senses, that would create tension within the states, and some governors in the southern states threatened to secede from the United States if the House chose Adams. During the time from the first election to the second election, many rumors and stories started to arise that brought tension and anxiety to the Capitol. One rumor that was starting to accumulate in the states was that Jefferson was involved in a scandal that stated the reason why he won the presidency was because he agreed to accept the Federalist terms. There were fears that the Federalists would not recognize the Democratic Republican Party of Jefferson. Also, rumors of militias armies were ready to attack and march if the Virginians won the presidency. There were rumors of Jefferson's assassination. There was no guarantee that his republic would be a success. The Federalists were in support of Burr during the momentum of this election because some believe they could use him to divide the Democratic Republican Party, or at the very least, use him as a puppet. Many Federalists supported Burr also because they despised Jefferson and did not want to be president. Supporting Burr would be the least dangerous alternative, and it could still leave the options open. Hamilton disagreed. He believed that Burr was not fit to be president. He will certainly disturb our institutions to secure himself permanent power, with it wealth. In modern terms, he disliked, possibly even hated Burr, and would do anything to see him fail to Jefferson. Hamilton failed to persuade the Federalists to support Jefferson even after he had advised to the Federalists that if they were to choose Jefferson, he had to give assurance to the Federalist Party, that being to adopt Federalist systems and some of their beliefs. The second election they held on February 11th, 1801 is when the House had finally come to a conclusion on just who their president should be, and in the end Jefferson wins the election with 10 votes and Burr with 4. He was inaugurated on March 4th, 1801.
In their history, that opposing political powers were peacefully switched without violence, without a revolution. Although things were uncertain for a bit, America remained strong. In Europe, something like this would be considered dangerous to say the least, but the replacement of one political power to another is what they would call a revolution. America had become a much stronger nation because of this. Any doubts that were held among the citizens about the strength of this country, the Constitution, and the constant battle between liberty and tyranny were dispelled.